You ever see an ancient temple and just think, how? How on earth did they build that? Well, today, we're going to talk about a group of people who weren't just building temples. They were rewriting the rulebook on what you could do with stone. I'm talking about the Pallava dynasty of South India.
Okay, just look at this. This is the shore temple at Mamallapuram. It's absolutely gorgeous, right? But here's the thing. This isn't where the story starts. This is where it ends. This incredible building is the grand finale of a long, long journey of innovation. A story that actually starts with people carving entire temples straight out of mountainsides. So, that's our big question today. How did they pull that off? I mean, how do you go from carving into a mountain to building something like this from the ground up with stone blocks? It's a huge leap. All right, let's get into it.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the pioneers themselves, the Pallavas. Then we'll look at their first phase, carving into mountains. Next, we'll see how they moved on to these incredible monolithic rathas. And finally, we'll get to the grand finale, freestanding temples. We'll wrap up with why their legacy is still so important.
All right, Section 1, Pallava Temple Pioneers. And we're calling them that for a reason. These guys weren't just builders. They were creating a whole new language for architecture in the south. To put it simply, the Pallavas basically invented what we now know as the Dravidian style of architecture. And this wasn't some passing fad, you know? What they created became the absolute foundation for temple building in the south for centuries to come. And what's so cool is you can see their genius evolve in 3 really clear stages. They started with rock-cut temples. Then they leveled up to monolithic rathas. And their final masterpiece, structural temples. This is our roadmap for the whole story, so let's jump into step 1. Okay, phase 1, carving into mountains. So what is rock-cut architecture? I mean, the idea is just mind-blowing. Think about it. You're not building something with stones. You're taking a giant, solid rock and carving away everything that isn't the temple. You're revealing the temple that's already hidden inside. The mountain literally becomes the temple. So these early temples were pure stone, nothing else. No bricks, no metal, just rock. They'd carved these huge pillars right into the face of the mountain for the entrance, creating what's called a mandapa. Then you go deeper inside, and they've hollowed out a sacred room, the sanctum, for the gods. And get this, at the entrance they carved these amazing guardian figures, the Dwarpalakas. And that little detail? It became a signature feature you see in so many South Indian temples later on. And the king who really championed this style, his name was Mahendravarman I. And this guy was fascinating. Not only was he funding these incredible architectural projects, but he was also a playwright. Yeah, he wrote a famous Sanskrit drama. Just a total patron of the arts through and through. But, you know, innovators never stand still. The Pallava architects were ready for their next big idea. After Mahendravarman, things started to change, which leads us right into phase 2, the monolithic leap. Okay, this is the key difference, so pay attention. With the first rock-cut temples, they were carving into a cliff, right? Making a cave an interior space. But with monolithic rathas, they totally flipped the script. Now, they were taking a huge, freestanding rock and carving it from the outside. They're sculpting a complete building with an outside and an inside, all from one single piece of stone. It's a huge shift in thinking. And the most famous example of this? You've got to see the Panchap Pandava Rathas at Mamallapuram. It's just wild. We're talking about 5 totally unique temples, each in a different style. And every single one is carved, top to bottom, out of its own giant boulder. Can you even imagine that? The sheer skill, the artistry, it's just mind-boggling. And that brings us to the final evolution, the ultimate achievement. Temples that stand completely free. And this is where it all comes together, back in Mamallapuram. Because here, you can see the whole range of their genius, side by side. You've got the shore temple, built piece by piece from granite blocks, and then right there you have Arjuna's penance, this gigantic, epic story carved into a cliff face. They were masters of both, building up and carving in. The king behind these granite marvels was Narasimhavarman I. He was Mahendravarman's successor, and his shore temple is the perfect example of a structural temple, the real deal. And Arjuna's penance? Wow! It's a masterpiece of classical art, an entire epic carved on a stone canvas that's 100 feet long. Just incredible. So, okay,
This all happened a long time ago. Why should we care today? Well, let's talk about their lasting legacy.
Well, for starters, in 1984, the rest of the world caught on. The whole group of monuments there at Mamallapuram, the Shore Temple, the Rathas, all of it was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That means it's considered so important it belongs to all of us. And this quote really says it all. The rock-cut architecture represents one of the most important sources of our knowledge of early Indian art and history. Think about that. These aren't just buildings. They're history books written in stone. They give us this incredible window into the art, the beliefs, and the life of ancient India.
So in the end, the Pallavas did something miraculous. They took solid, lifeless rock and turned it into breathtaking art and living history. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we keep looking at these amazing places, what other stories are still locked away in the stone, just waiting for us to find them?